me.
Better me.
Better me.
Better me. It's better me. Hopefully. All right, I know that you've seen the title and you're probably like, oh God, not a preachy podcast about how I've got to stop vaping and all that sort of stuff. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're just here to talk about vaping because I accidentally became a vapor. Okay? And so I thought I'll do a podcast episode on it because I need to talk about it. I need to find out more and I need to find out how the hell I quit because, God, they are so addictive. And so today, for anyone that, like me, is or has been on the old vape, we're going to catch up with my mates Bri and Mike, who have just successfully quit vaping.
You wake up, you check the time, it's 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever, and then the vape's right next to your phone or your water. It just becomes like something you do. Yeah, it's really strange.
I also cornered my friend Sin Howard, who does the Georgie FM Drive show, to ask her what it was like in the trenches because she was currently giving up vaping.
Maybe 4 days ago, I was in a very dark space. I didn't think I could get there mentally just over what I would consider like a dirty little habit.
And of course, would it be better me hopefully without an expert? Absolutely not. So I got some expert insider knowledge from Dr. Jude Ball. She's done extensive studies into vaping and its effects.
The science is really clear that vaping affects respiratory health, so your lungs and breathing, your heart health, oral health, your gums are affected, and mental health can be affected.
All right, everybody. Those of you listening to this whilst holding your grape ice vape, take an inhale, take an exhale. If you're just listening to this out of pure interest and you're not a vapist, take an inhale and an exhale. Let's get into it.
Better Me, hopefully, with Sharyn Casey.
The wonderful Jude Ball. Jude, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Jude, I'm so grateful for your time because I was talking to Professor Andy Towers and he was saying when it comes to vaping, you are the one that just knows so much about it. So I really appreciate your time. You've done loads of studies on vaping, especially in our youth. Why is it, do you think, that vaping appears to be more addictive than smoking? Because I gave up smoking after a very, very long time, over a decade, and it wasn't that hard, but giving up my casual vaping that then crept into my life, it felt like a million times harder. What do you think it is that's making it more addictive than smoking?
Well, I think there's two things. One is that there's very few limits around vaping. So with cigarettes, it's quite defined. You know, it takes 5 minutes, you have to leave the house. They're blimmin' expensive. So there's kind of natural limits on smoking, whereas you can vape pretty much anywhere. They're so cheap. So it's pretty easy just to sip away on a vape constantly. And, you know, the more nicotine your brain gets, the more it wants. So it's easy to get very addicted. But the other thing is the technology's changed. So it's kind of a new thing that vapes are so addictive. When they first came out, they weren't actually that good at delivering nicotine. So a lot of people that tried them, you know, who wanted to switch from smoking found they weren't actually that satisfying and kind of, you know, went back to smoking. But in the last couple of years, the technology's changed. So they've got nicotine salt, which allows a higher level of nicotine without a harsh throat feeling. And the devices themselves, just the way that the coils and the heating works, they've just refined them so that they deliver nicotine faster, and it's much more like the hit that you get from cigarettes.
I love talking to experts about all of these different topics, but I also really like just talking to normal, everyday Kiwis about their experience with this. And two of my friends, Mike and Bri, have actually just been going through quitting vaping and quitting vaping as a couple and quitting vaping at a different time. And so I thought you guys were the perfect people to talk to. But before we get into like the quitting part of your story, were you both smokers before you started vaping?
I was, yeah. I started casually smoking when I was a teenager, you know, trying to be cool at parties. And so would, you know, share ciggies with my friends on the weekends. And then as I got a little older, 18, 19, 20, I would start to smoke regularly during the week. And then in my 20s, yeah, I was smoking. I actually had to quit smoking when I got a full-time, when I was interning and I just had no money. And I was like, it's either smoking or eating. So I had to quit then. But I wouldn't say like a heavy smoker, but I definitely was a regular smoker.
What made you switch from smoking to vaping?
I actually quit smoking entirely. Again, I kind of got to the point where I was like, I need to either choose to buy my groceries and my petrol or smoke. So that was quite an easy decision. And I don't remember it being that hard. So I quit cold turkey and I wasn't smoking or vaping or anything for about 2 years. And then vapes became popular and everyone had them. I was working at Georgie Femme at the time. We used to give them out. We used to give them out as promo. Yeah, and I was like, I think I just got given a vape from someone at work. And then I just started to get hooked on that, which was so annoying.
They were giving out vapes as a promo thing.
Yeah.
That's buzzy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Crazy.
This actually wasn't even that long ago. It wasn't that long ago.
3-4 years ago.
Yeah. We'd give away Vapo packs.
That's crazy. And Mike, you weren't a smoker.
Nah, well, I'd have some socially, whenever if we were going out for drinks or things like that, but infrequently. Like Bri was saying before, when vapes started becoming a bit more popular, they were just something to have, and then it just became a thing.
Why do you think that vaping's more addictive than smoking?
I think that there's a long list of things I disliked about smoking, and when you look at vaping, the list was really small. Either I was making excuses for myself, but the classics. Smoking absolutely stinks. It makes your hair smell, makes your fingers smell. You have to go outside in the cold. They're expensive. Not a lot of your friends do smoke, so quite often you'd be taking yourself away from social situations. And I'm glad that it's moved into this direction now. But looking at smokers these days, you don't look cool. It used to be a cool thing to do, but you actually look at yourself sometimes and you're like, oh my God, I feel a bit gross. Whereas vaping, everyone's vaping. It doesn't smell. You can do it inside. We would vape inside at home all the time. It doesn't make your hair stink or anything like that. It's not really offensive. Most of the time it's a flavoured vape that it kind of smells nice. It was just all these things. And, they're fairly cheap, which is also the other thing.
So
you can get a disposable vape for $10.
Yeah.
So I think it was just I don't know, there wasn't a lot in there that we could actually go, okay, these are the reasons why, other than the most obvious, which is I don't even know what this is doing to my health, which is scary. There's so much, obviously, research on what smoking does to your lungs, and, they've done a good job at plastering that everywhere now. We've all seen the pictures on the back of a smoke packet, but no one really knows with vaping, and you can easily just go, turn a blind eye.
This is a great moment, actually, to jump back to Jude, because she knows all about the health side effects.
The science is pretty clear on this, that vaping is bad for you. I mean, it's addictive, as we've just talked about, so that means kind of loss of control. It impacts your self-esteem. It's got financial impacts. But just in terms of your physical health, the science is really clear that vaping affects respiratory health, so your lungs and breathing, your heart health, oral health, your gums are affected, and mental health can be affected. The science is quite clear that actually in the medium to long term, nicotine use is harmful for mental health. So it might feel like you're helping yourself, making yourself feel better, but actually by smoking or vaping or using any nicotine product, you're probably actually making things harder for yourself.
Wow. Yeah.
Similar to, you think having a drink is going to help you after a stressful day.
Yep.
But we kind of know that leaning on alcohol as a coping mechanism actually isn't that healthy.
Okay, so Jude's painting a pretty clear picture about the effects that vaping has on us. But I was curious to know if any of this contributed to Bri and Mike wanting to give up. What was their why?
This is my third time giving up vaping. I did it a couple times last year, a week here and there, just to see what it was like, if I could do it. But after a week, I was still feeling that I wonder what it's like to have it now. You got that curiosity. But this time, I think I was just ready. I was just over it. I think it helped my vape broke. It was this battery acid I was having. So
like a sign.
There was that. I don't want to pay for a new one. Or whenever I had it, it was like, what am I doing? So I think I was been telling others too, if you don't want to give up, you won't. So that's why I gave up in Feb this year. I don't even think I really told you. But, I wasn't going to try force hey, you should give up too, because I knew that unless you wanted to, you wouldn't do it. So you kind of have to arrive at that sort of decision yourself. But I actually am quite surprised at how, not easily, but how much it just became a thing that I didn't do.
Yeah.
I think you do transfer a bit of that attention. You know, you get a bit twitchy, or I tried just to transfer that thought into like not learning new things, but doing things like reading the road code and trying to get a motorbike license and things like that. That's kind of dipped off because I'm now back to work and you're kind of distracted with stuff. But I mean, that's how I just got there.
Yeah.
Whereas I milked it for all it's worth. I honestly, quitting vaping was so hard. But I think for me, I was just spending so much money on it. We're saving for a wedding in April next year. And it just got to the point where, you know, you're going through your bank statement and you're like, right, how much can we actually portion off to our wedding and our honeymoon and things that are important to us and our savings goals? And I was just hemorrhaging money on vapes. And it's like, what the heck am I doing? Also, like, quite a few of our friends have had babies recently, and it just became so obvious when I would be dipping out to have a vape when meeting like new baby. I just felt so gross. I just literally kind of almost had a bird's eye view of myself being, you know, the vapor of the group. And I'm like, ooh, I need to quit this.
While we're talking quitting, I decided to come and talk to my friend Sin, who does the drive show on George FM. And Sin, you're in the throes of actually quitting vaping right now. How many days in are you?
I am officially 7 days in, Shaz, and I will say it's been the worst 7 days of my life.
What's been happening? Because you are well and truly in the trenches.
Maybe 4 days ago, I was in a very dark space. I didn't think I could get there mentally just over what I would consider like a dirty little habit. But I've learned so much in the last 7 days through that Alan Carr Easy Ways to Quit book.
I've been listening to the audio version of it. It's really good, eh?
Same. So I'm currently in that and I'm learning heaps about addiction and whatnot. But I was very sad. Like, the thoughts were a bit scary there for a bit. Very much so, like, you know, what's my thing? What have I got to live for? What's my little vice, you know?
Oh, yeah.
It was really hard. I was like, I don't even enjoy going out and seeing my friends anymore because I can't vape. Or like, my biggest love in life is music. Like, I don't even want to go out, listen to music anymore because I can't vape. Like, it just was such a scary thought process, I feel, for myself.
Do you feel like you've gotten through that now, or is it something you're still kind of like working your way up to do?
It's very much still like in my head. I'll still have little sudden thoughts of, I miss that, or like you're being deprived of something that you truly, utterly just like love so much. Because that's what I always say to my friends, like, I never want to quit vaping. I love vaping.
Yeah,
I literally love the feeling of vapes. I love it. But I will say, like, 7 days in now, and I have just got this like weird zest for life that I have found that I haven't had in a very long time.
And so what other positive changes have you found? Because we were just speaking to a professor who was saying that vaping is proven to affect your mental health in a negative way. So that really balances up.
Yeah.
But what are the positives that you're noticing only 7 days in from quitting vaping?
I am notoriously a 2 a.m. bedtime person.
Oh, wow.
And I've just always been that way. I've been smoking since I was 18, so I've kind of only ever known myself to be a 2 a.m. sleeper. I go to bed at like 10 p.m. now and I'm asleep. Wow. So I'm getting like 8 hours sleep, which is unheard of for someone like me. My skin has just improved significantly. I feel like food tastes better.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. You don't realise how dull your taste buds were.
Yeah, like they do say that it affects your taste buds significantly. So I'm just like really enjoying, and I'm such a foodie, so I'm really enjoying food again and like rediscovering things. I'm like, oh, this is nice. My stress levels, I always thought of myself as someone that was like highly strung and always stressed out, and I thought it was everything else was the problem. Except for my vaping addiction. But it was the vape that was like tenfold, like all of the stress for me. So I feel way less stressed in day-to-day situations, and like people don't piss me off as much.
Yeah. Do you feel stronger? Like you feel like it's going to stick?
I do feel like this one feels different. I've done it before and I didn't take it too seriously. I felt like I was like, I'm just going to quit vaping, whatever, I don't need it. and I didn't really stick to it, and I didn't do things that actually helped me along the way because I didn't realise it was an addiction. I thought it was just like a silly little thing that I like to do. Now that I've understood kind of like the addiction side of it and how powerful our mind is over this whole thing, I feel like there's a new energy around this time, and I reckon I'm going to try my hardest. Yeah,
because that's what Mike was saying as well, was you won't quit unless you want to. And it seems like you have this want.
Yeah, well, I've been going through a few like health issues recently. Like I've got PCOS, I've got thyroid issues, and I'm working closely with like a naturopath and a nutritionist, as well as like a doctor and all that sort of stuff. And the main theme throughout this whole thing is like, you need to stop vaping. And I was a little bit like up against the wall on that. I was like, no, that's my one thing that I'm allowed to do. You know, you've taken gluten from me, you've taken all those things. But now, after seeing the benefits and like how much I've changed just in 7 days, I'm like, oh yeah, I totally understand now. Like, I do want to quit because I feel so much better for it.
Better Me, hopefully, sponsored by Specsavers. Dun da da da! Ryan O'Connor from Specsavers is joining us right now. Now, Ryan, I've got to ask a question because I think it's something we kind of skimp on, but is there an age where we should start getting regular eye tests? And are there things that we need to think about to look after our eyes in general?
So there's no early age for eye tests. We'll see them all. But in general, as long as everything's going well, having a before school eye exam is very helpful. A lot of people will get some screening done when they're in kindergarten before school. But yeah, 3 or 4 years old is a good time to start. And generally, if nothing is wrong, every 2 years is a good time frame to have your eyes tested. Of course, if anything goes awry, you notice anything different, you know where to find us. Come on in Specsavers and we'll do a comprehensive eye exam.
Oh, thank you so much, Ryan. That is really, really good to know. And honestly, I've taken both my kids for eye tests. One of them has to get them regularly because he was preemie, and when you're on oxygen for so long, you have to get like these tests done. They actually kind of enjoy it because it's like a fun little game where people are like, yay! So don't be scared to take your kids in. Thank you so much, Ryan. So far, we're just talking about adults who, you know, we've got the smarts to be able to know that it's bad for us. We know all the risks involved. But the thing that scares me most about vaping is younger people. My kids, when they're coming through, that next generation, the problem for them isn't the quitting. It's more the starting in the first place. And Jude's got some great thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think it is scary. And, you know, a lot of parents are really concerned about the fact that vapes seem to be so easy to get hold of for young people, and you really can't tell, you know, easily whether a young person's vaping. Young people have said to us that one of the attractions of vaping is that it's so discreet.
Wow.
But what the evidence shows about protecting young people from vaping, you know, in terms of messages to parents, is that having a really strong, loving, open relationship with your kid or teenager is a really important protective factor, and also having really clear expectations.
It feels like vaping is so much more accepted than smoking. Like, people in workplaces are sitting at their desk. I've had a co-host who would hit his vape in the studio. Is there any research, Jude, on like secondhand vape smoke?
Yeah, not a lot. I mean, the science is still, that's something that we don't know that much about. But the suggestion is that it's because we know what's in smoke, we kind of know what's in aerosol that comes out when you breathe out of a vape, and those things have been tested. So the toxins in tobacco smoke are much more toxic. Mm-hmm. So the physical risk is lower. But from my perspective, it's that normalising. You know, if people are vaping everywhere, it really normalises it. And you know, the role modelling to other people, and particularly young people, is really concerning. So even if it's not harming others physically, you know, and it may be, but probably subtly, it's certainly creating an environment where vaping is so much the norm that it's quite hard for people to resist it, and particularly people that are trying to quit. I mean, trying to quit vaping in a workplace where others are just doing it around you, that's tough.
Back to Bri and Mike, because they've already been through it, right? They have given up, but they've also been those people.
You can do it whenever. doesn't smell, it tastes good. It just became just I don't know, like every few minutes
you don't
just
even
reach for it.
realise. I'd be days where I'd be working from home, I would just have it in my hand constantly to the point that I'd only realised I'd been vaping that much when my pod had run out, and I'd just filled it up that morning, and I'm like, that's disgusting.
Wow, but
My
you still
throat
fill
is
it up
dry.
and carry on.
I know, I'm like, I better get a refill
the better
before it
reaction.
shuts at 6. Yeah, genuinely. I agree. I was constantly vaping, whereas smoking, you actually have to go outside and it might be cold, or it would just you'd have to
that
actually
stink on
take
you.
yourself away from a social situation to have a smoke, especially at the workplace. Like, no one was really smoking back then.
But everyone, I look around
Everyone's
sometimes and
vaping.
you'll see like a puff of a vape smoke
Yeah.
going up above somebody's pod just at their desk, or you
I
walk
know.
into a studio and an
Yeah.
announcer's like huffing on a vape. But Mike, you don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, but you got to the point where you'd wake up in the middle of the night having...
Oh yeah. Like you wake up, you check the time. It's 2:00 in the morning or whatever, and then the vape's right next to your phone or your water.
and you
So you
just...
just have one or two, and then you're just thinking, what am I doing? But it just becomes like something you do. So it's really strange.
Reaching for the 2 a.m. vape is pretty wild, but I kind of understand it. And I asked around the office where the sneakiest place was that my workmates have had a vape.
On an airplane, on the bus, or at my desk at work.
Airplane once, airplane bathroom. Really shouldn't do that though. It goes, sets an alarm off.
And you did set the alarm off?
No, it didn't somehow, but it does set the alarm off, which I was like, never doing that again.
Sneakiest place you've had a vape?
Every toilet that exists.
That's my favourite thing at concerts, is watching the puff of vape go up from the toilet stalls.
How's if you breathe into the bowl?
Oh, okay, there's a hot fire tip.
Sneakiest place I've had a vape. Oh, in the producer booth at work.
But it's not like all of these people that we're talking to used to be smokers, smoking cigarettes or whatever. A lot of these people didn't smoke 10 years ago, but they have picked up vaping. So surely there are way more people doing it than ever smoked ciggies. I checked in with Jude on this.
Yeah, definitely. So in the younger age groups, so teenagers and young adults, the majority of people who vape have never been regular smokers.
Wow.
When you look at middle-aged people, 40, 50 or above, people who vape in that age group nearly always have switched from smoking. Or in fact, they might be doing both. That seems to be the more common thing. And that's a really important message to get across, actually, is that to get the benefits of switching from smoking to vaping, you need to completely switch, because they harm the body in different ways. So if you're doing both, you're getting a double whammy of harm. You're not actually helping yourself. So you really do need to fully switch.
What is your prediction for vape culture and the vape industry in the next 10 years? Like, do you think it's going to be more regulated? Do you think it's going to get more dangerous? Where do you see it going?
Where it's going very clearly, and we're already seeing this overseas, is into nicotine pouches. So the big tobacco, Philip Morris and the other big tobacco companies are producing these pouches that you pop inside your lip and you absorb the nicotine through your mouth.
Oh.
And they are pushing them really heavily online to young people. So we're already seeing huge uptake in the US and in parts of Europe. And our new government wants to legalise them here. So it's not legal to sell in New Zealand at the moment. You can import them for personal use. And we are hearing that young people anyway, they are starting to hear about them and use them. But use is still pretty low in New Zealand at the moment. But yeah, if they become legalised, we will see them everywhere. And yeah, my prediction is that will be the next wave of youth nicotine addiction. I'm concerned about that.
Jude, thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it. And I can't wait to get this episode out, because I think that it will be a real eye-opener for a bunch of people, and also help a bunch of parents as well, like myself, that are going to have these conversations. So thank you so much.
13-year-olds, so we're in the zone too.
Oh, God. At least you've got some good flow charts you could get out and show them.
Exactly.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, well, thanks, Sharyn. It's been really nice talking with you.
All right, if I'm honest with you, this episode was possibly one of the most confronting ones, because everything that I was being told about vaping, I knew, and I knew it was bad for me. But interestingly, when we turned the mics off, the first thing I said was, God, now I just feel like a vape, even though I just heard about how bad it was. Now, I have successfully given up vaping. I'm proud of myself for doing that, but I gave up smoking. I smoked for like over a decade, which I said earlier in the episode. Giving up vaping, every time someone even talks about it, it's a completely different sort of addiction. Like every time someone talks about it, if I see someone pick one up, I instantly want to go and have a hoon on it. I don't know. It's just so much more addictive. And to hear Jude talk about this and how there's more things coming, it just freaks me the hell out because I have such an addictive personality and I just really hope that my kids don't inherit that from me. I don't want this to sound preachy, and I just want to kind of help ourselves figure out ways to make ourselves better. So if you are a vapor and you're feeling attacked, I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to make you feel attacked. But I think what Mike said, and if you are listening to this and you've got a partner or a friend that you really wish would give up vaping, one thing I will tell you is my husband hated that I was vaping. Hated it so much that I was hiding it from him. He hated it. He told me all the time that he hated it. And I'd just do it and pretend I wasn't. The thing is, Mike was bang on correct. The person in your life that's vaping, they're not going to quit vaping unless they want to. So you just have to wait because that moment will come, but they're not going to do it until they really, really want to. They may try, but they won't be successful until they actually want to do it. So just be patient because it's a gnarly addiction. I know it's not, one of the heaviest addictions out there, but it is a hard thing to really wrap your brain around. So please be patient. Oh, that's enough about that. Honestly, I feel puffed just talking about it because I just feel very confronted. On the next episode, we're going to do the Tortured Bread Lovers department. And that ep is all about nutrition. What I'm excited about for this episode is that my friend Joelle Legg, who is a nutritionist, is going to be answering your questions.
Bread is not bad.
Okay.
You don't have to cut your bread.
Praise the bread gods. That is great news. Honestly, thank you so much for doing my prep for this interview because I didn't have to write one question because you sent in so many. And I'm going to get through as many of them as I possibly can in next week's episode. Also, I'm going to be finding out directly from you your life hacks to meal prep because it's hard. I can buy the containers, but filling the containers, it's quite hard. So we're going to learn about that next week. Thank you so much for listening. I'll catch you next time. Love you. Bye.